I came here with no money to pay for school, so I had to find out a way. I had to survive, so I had to find a way to make money and how to work, pay for everything, and keep going and excelling at school. Hello, my name is Steve, and I use nootropics so I can perform better in society. My favorite is something called Modafinil.
Prescription-grade modafinil is a stimulant that keeps Steve alert and able to focus. Steve isn't his real name. He agreed to show us his own supply of modafinil if we obscured his identity.
I was working full-time, and I was going to school, and I was doing all my projects on the side at the same time. I had to pay rent, I have to pay all these stuff, bills to pay, credit cards, all that stuff. So in the end, it was I had to find a way to keep up. When I started taking modafinil, it was a huge game changer. I started excelling ridiculously at work. I started excelling ridiculously at school, and I was able to keep up with everything.
You probably have a lot of questions at this point. How did Steve manage to acquire these pills? Are they dangerous? Are they illegal? And if you are a stressed out student yourself, can I take a pill to make myself more successful?
Steve's drug of choice, modafinil, is called a cognitive enhancer. Cognitive enhancers are a class of stimulants that affect the flow of chemicals in the brain. They can boost attention, memory, and wakefulness. While something called a cognitive enhancer may sound like science fiction, the truth is you've probably seen them before. Drugs like Adderall and Ritalin are the most common cognitive enhancers on the market. They are intended for people diagnosed with attention deficit disorders, like ADHD, while other stimulants, like dexedrine and modafinil, are used to treat sleep disorders, like narcolepsy. Even in low doses, these drugs are powerful stimulants, and although it's illegal to possess them without a prescription in Canada, it hasn't stopped students from using them to get an edge in class. Steve is just one of the many students who have turned to cognitive enhancers in order to do better in school. In Canada, almost 4% of students admitted to taking stimulant drugs without a prescription last year. But most students won't admit to taking the drugs, so the problem is difficult to track. We've seen a similar pattern emerge in the United Kingdom, where today at least 20% of post-secondary students have used these drugs. They're so popular that they have their own street name, brain candy. There's an old saying about university life. You can have good grades, good health, and good friends. Pick two. To most students, this isn't an exaggeration. The fact is, they are under a lot of pressure. Dr. Su-Ting Tao has spent the last few years tracking how student stress is affecting mental health in Canadian colleges and universities.
My experience with mental health issues for students comes from research, but it comes from practice and it comes from management as well. So as a physician in the medical center, I've spent many years seeing students for depression, anxiety, and just stress.
Dr. Tao's research has seen the number of overwhelmed students grow every year. Last year, nearly 90% of students surveyed said that they were overwhelmed by all they had to do, and 1 in 10 admitted that they had seriously considered suicide.
The common issues that students deal with is, of course, predominantly stress, where they have so many different issues they're struggling with at the same time. So whether it's school or jobs or finances or relationships, it's all coming at them at the same time.
It's getting more expensive to get an education, leaving many students drowning in debt with fewer chances to climb out. In the last 2 decades, tuition has skyrocketed in Canada, tripling in Ontario alone. Is it any wonder, then, that the use of cognitive enhancers has tripled as well? Some students are willing to go to great lengths to get these drugs. When Steve wants a refill on modafinil, he goes online. He ends up on the deep web, on a hidden site called Silk Road 2.0. Users can go on Silk Road to purchase illegal drugs from anywhere in the world.
When I go on like modafinil, I have to order from India, get it shipped to Sweden. Some guy in Sweden ships it to the United States, and some guy in the United States ships it to me. What they do is they package it really nicely. It looks like if your cousin sent it to you. There's like Aladdin stickers on it. The whole thing is to not make customs open it, right? You don't want them to open it or else they'll confiscate it. There's no return address. There's only your address, so you're the one that's at risk.
Detective Jeffrey Ross of the Toronto Police Drug Squad says Steve may not be aware of how serious a crime it is to order drugs online.
This may speak to a number of different drugs. If they are under or listed in the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, that would constitute an offense if you did not have them legally prescribed. You are effectively committing the offense of trafficking, and therefore committing the offense, you are liable to the same punishments and repercussions as if you were selling cocaine or heroin.
What Steve is doing, although he might not consider it as serious as trafficking, carries a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison. Not only that, but since vendors remain anonymous on the web, you have no guarantee that what you're getting is really what you paid for. As for students who aren't willing to risk it, it all depends on who you know. It's fairly common for students with ADHD to give away or sell their prescription medication. Michael Bray already has a prescription for a cognitive aid. He began taking Concerta, a stimulant chemically identical to Ritalin, when he was only 11.
I go to the University of Toronto, and I'm a health and disease specialist.
Despite having ADHD, Michael is succeeding in one of the hardest pre-med programs in Canada. And since he has legal access to a cognitive enhancer like Concerta, he's been asked for doses by desperate classmates.
It's not something where you hear about it and you're like, oh, really? That person used a cognitive enhancer. You're just sort of like, yep. I've had a few friends ask for it in different programs, but they were all very high-stress programs. They're all fairly involved individuals with like a lot of different things going on who just need a little bit of extra help because they just have so much going on. That's completely understandable. And we're competing with all these other people that are equally ambitious. And so to sort of keep up with them, we take on more and more and more things.
But even with the best of intentions, if Michael were to give one of his friends his pills for what he calls a little bit of extra help, he would be liable for dealing drugs.
A doctor is much better suited to address the person as a whole, as well as certain unknown conditions that they may have, or other drug interactions that they may be having. It is not for a topic or a resolution to be settled amongst friends in the dorm room.
If students could get stimulants legally, they probably would. But coping with stress is not a valid reason for most doctors to write up a prescription. Dr. Derek Smith from the University of British Columbia is a rare exception. In a few cases, he feels that cognitive enhancers have benefited his patients.
First of all, I want to make sure that they understand the pros and cons of the treatment. I want to make sure they're capable of consenting to the treatment. I want to make sure they've looked at other alternatives as well. And when all that is said and done, I would consider prescribing it.
There have been no prominent studies done on the long-term side effects of cognitive enhancers. This may lead users to think that they are safe to take. But even among professionals, there are varying opinions about the safety of these drugs. Dr. David Yearling specializes in drug safety and toxicology at the Sunnybrook Research Institute. He's been tracking the growing use of Adderall.
The usual doses of Adderall, 5, 10, 15 milligrams, aren't usually a problem. But when you get to higher doses, as many patients do, people can become frankly psychotic at higher doses. And there are many instances of people becoming addicted to and abusing these drugs.
You're not going to be giving anyone any kind of a medication that doesn't have a side effect. Even aspirin or cold remedies that you buy over the counter have very significant side effects.
The most reported side effects of cognitive enhancers are lack of sleep and lack of appetite. More serious side effects include anxiety and tremors. But something as commonplace as aspirin can lead to extreme side effects like stomach rupture.
It's widely accepted that the Battle of Britain was won by pilots who were taking dextrin on a very regular basis. Frontline troops in most wars are given neurostimulants so they function better. So if there were going to be terrible side effects with these medications, we would know about them by now.
So what was used to win a war is now being used to succeed in school. When academic doping is discussed, people are left with more questions than answers. For one thing, is it cheating?
So these glasses are another piece of evidence of cognitive enhancement, because with these glasses I can see things that I normally wouldn't be capable of doing. Computers, extra tutoring, There's many other things that help people do better academically, and we don't consider that to be cheating. So I don't see why, if a medication makes someone function better, why that would be considered cheating in some way.
When an athlete is caught using steroids, he or she is immediately suspended, investigated, and publicly made to apologize. But professional sports are not the same as academics. Practically speaking, it's nearly impossible for school officials to ban cognitive enhancers. Universities can't, after all, drug test 200 students before a final exam. Currently, Duke University is the only one who has made an official change to its rules. In 2009, Duke banned the use of cognitive-enhancing medications in their academic integrity policy. But there are no indicators that it stopped academic doping on Duke's campus. In our investigation, we contacted Steve's school in Toronto, Ryerson University. The vice provost of students responded saying that the university simply doesn't have a policy. That means that students like Steve would have fallen through the cracks. It doesn't seem like school policies, unknown health risks, or even legal consequences are lessening the demand for cognitive enhancers. A casual look on Craigslist found that ads for study drugs are common, even though Craigslist officially bans the sale of illegal drugs. Dealers use code words like Addy or Study Aid. We found that these ads, shown here, had been removed less than 24 hours later. On November 6th, Silk Road 2.0, the second version of Steve's favorite site, was seized by the FBI. But around exam time, when the demand is highest, people always find ways to take advantage of the system.
I don't mean to sound unsympathetic, but that's just not how life is. I mean, life is not about managing your problems with pills. What that does in the long term, is beget a society of people who expect that every problem that we have is going to have a pill to come with it.
As of right now, most schools aren't banning the use of cognitive enhancers to do well in class. Doctors aren't regulating who gets their hands on controlled substances. Online laws and regulations aren't keeping up with enterprising drug vendors. And when they do, websites like Silk Road 2.0 don't stay shut down for long. It comes down to the person who's deciding to take the drug and the hard choices that we all have to make. For the Ryerson Documentary Unit, I'm Jordan Tamblin.